Okay, so let's go over this real quick. Triss Butterflies. I think Triss Butterflies has been like very weak stat wise. 7 for 9. She's got the stats line of a 4 provision card, but she costs 9. And I feel like 5 extra provisions for her effect is not worth it for most things. And this is why you don't really see her played much. You don't even see her being played in hand buff. There are some hand buff decks, like my Renfrey Invigorate deck didn't even play her at the beginning of the season. That's how bad she is. And she will be not just a buff for hand buff, but also a buff for some other things like spotters, like anything that really like wants a certain card in round 1, and anything that has synergy with like boosting a unit without playing it, like Ada Striga. She'll be good for Ada Striga, which would be kind of cool. Bad lore. Ciri. Power increase for Ciri. Ciri's a very interesting card, right? Is she too strong in Kekker decks? No, she's not. She's not even being played in most Kekker decks. Triss Butterflies can't get Kekker. She can't get Golden Necker herself. Very few Necker decks are actually playing her. I think she maybe sees play in something like Caranthir Kiki Queen Kekker, maybe? But even that, I don't think so. I think most people are just relying on drawing stuff naturally and thinning through other purposes. Like, I see Mata more often than I see Triss Butterflies because Mata can actually guarantees get you the Kekker. Vanilla Ciri. Vanilla Ciri, okay, one thing is really cool with the timing of this buff is we had the Witcher 4 trailer released this month, and the reveal that Ciri is going to be the protagonist for Witcher 4. It only seems fitting that we finally get around to buffing one of her cards. Vanilla Ciri has a really, really interesting and a little scary effect. She's a carryover type of card. She's a card advantage type of card. For those of you who haven't been playing much for that long and have never seen this card in action, don't understand what exactly she does. She plays as a 7, 4 power body plus 3 damage the first time you play her. But if you lose the round and she stays on the board and doesn't die and doesn't get locked, she moves herself back into your hand, which is positive card advantage for you. If you go into the next round and you would have had like 5 cards in the next round, Ciri's effect would let you get 6 cards in the next round, which is card advantage, which is really, really good in the game, right? Card advantage, each card is probably worth on average like 9-10 points or even higher. And card advantage means that you get last say when you wouldn't have had last say before, which can be crucial to tall punish these things like Corrupted Flaminica that we're playing right now. False Ciri, or not False Ciri, regular Ciri, she doesn't see any play right now because 1, her stats are kind of bad, and 2, she's very easily answered. At 4 power, she dies to almost everything. At 5 power, it'll be almost closer to a 2-point buff than a 1-point buff to this card, because you might play her a second time. The first time you play her, she'll play for 8, and if you do keep her in the hand, if she goes back to hand and then you end up keeping her, she'll play for another extra point. But a lot of times, even if she goes back into hand, a lot of times you will choose to mulligan her away to try to find something else, because most of the bronzes in your hand in your deck are probably going to be just as good, if not better, than 8 points, right? But the big thing is she's 2 points better, maybe 2 points better, 1 to 2 points better, and then she's more survivable at 5 power. I could see people playing her with stuff like Carapace to buff her to 8 power and Veil, and then you can't tall punish her with Geralt of Rivia's, or you can't lock her. It's hard to kill her versus damage. It could be kind of interesting, and it's a little bit of a riskier change, but I think it's fine to take this risk on this card. And if she really does need a nerf, I would consider maybe nerfing her to 10 provisions. I don't think she needs to be playable in Golden Necker. I think the power is a more drastic change for this sort of card than the provision. So maybe if she gets too strong, maybe you can go 5 power, 10 provisions, and she might be in the right spot at that point. Does it not work with Carapace? Why doesn't it work with Carapace? Does Carapace not put Veil on neutral units? Oh, it only gives Veil to non-neutral units. Okay. Yeah, I was wrong about that. Maybe Shield Wall then. Shield Wall gives shields to neutral units. That's the one that I was confusing with. Honor Henrietta is very interesting card as well. It's support for more pure assimilate rather than the assimilate that's kind of like play a couple of assimilate engines, high floor assimilate engines, and then like jam the Stefan. She can be played in those Stefan decks, but they're usually short on slots, on card slots. I think her ability is very flavorful. She definitely could use a buff. Might Some people even think that she could use 2 buffs, like that she could be 5 power. I think that's a little much. I think I'd like to see how she performs at 4 power first. She is a high variance card because sometimes your opponent plays a leader that you really don't like. For example, like say line pockets, right? It's almost 0 points. It's 0 points unless you get a spender, and then you can't really take advantage of their passives that well either. But sometimes she can be a lot of points, and there are some cool things that you can do with her. Even if, say, their leader's not very good for you, you can use your other assimilate cards to find something that's really good for you. You can't coup her now? Yeah, I mean, not immediately, but you could still set up a coup on her. Caltelis would still play Vanilla Ciri to put her behind defenders? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I like this change. It's also supporting a suggestion from Team ACP, active CIS players, active CIS players. They made a Reddit post like maybe a week ago, and Anna Henrietta was one of their recommendations. They recommended buffs to a ton of Nilfgaard cards, and we definitely don't want to see all of those buffed at the same time, but we like Anna Henrietta the most. We're going to support that. Honestly, getting to coup Anna for free was always annoying in mirrors. Yeah, so I think that's a good change in this case as well. Power decrease for Elder Bear. A lot of people look at this and at first glance and they don't get it, and they think that we're trying to nerf a bad card. Elder Bear is obviously relatively weak at 6 for 4 vanilla, no ability, but we're not doing it to nerf Elder Bear. We're doing it to adjust how Bearification's power level is. So Bearification right now, it's mostly played as like on your own side of the board, plays on your own artifact for 10 for 5. 10 points for 5 provisions. Very, very high point slam stat line with the very, very rare use of playing Bearification on your opponent's artifact. Because when you use it for artifact removal, you're playing -6 tempo. You're removing a thing that's worth 0 points on their board and giving them 6 points. And you're spending a turn to do that. It's really weak as an artifact removal card. And you almost never see it being played for artifact removal. Because it's so low tempo, it's so negative tempo, the artifact value on the board has to be approaching like... It basically, you think about it this way, the artifact value on the board has to be 17 or more for it to be worth playing offensive Bearification on their artifact to be better than defensive Bearification on your own artifact. Right? If their artifact value on their board is worth 17, then you're playing a 17 minus 6 or 11 point Bearification when you Bearify their artifact. And it's not impossible for that to be the case, but I think it's kind of rare. And this adjustment will make it so that Bearification will play for 9 for 5 on your own artifact, which is still good. 9 for 5 point slam card is not bad. And it'll make the offensive artifact removal a little bit better. I think it's going to be healthier for the meta if there is a little bit more ways to answer artifacts. And even though in Gwynfinity we can't change abilities, we can at least do this to help better balance one of the only 3 artifact removal cards in the game, which are Shoop, Heatwave, Bearification. And so while I do think that it's a sad collateral damage to Elder Bear being nerfed to 5 power in order to achieve this, it's a necessary evil in my opinion, and it's not gonna be that negatively impactful because not that many decks, there's barely any decks that play Elder Bear. that are serious decks. It's mostly just some variations of SK Beasts that play Elder Bear for the tag that hope to put it in the graveyard somehow with like discards or Lippy, and then getting +2 on Flaminica, getting a beast tag for the Kelpie condition in the starting deck. And those decks, like, they never even really intend on playing Elder Bear in the round or in the game. They sometimes are forced to, so in those cases they'll lose 1 point. But I think that's, very small and not very important compared to properly balancing one of the only 3 artifact removal cards we have in the game. All right, Radovid Judgment. Radovid Judgment. So when it comes to, I'll talk about Radovid Judgment and Redanian Secret Service together. They're both NR self-thinning cards. I think Redanian Secret Service is a higher priority to nerf than Radovid Judgment. But we also think that Radovid Judgment should get a nerf because NR Devotion has a really, really strong short round with Radovid Judgment. And it has, of course, an extremely threatening long round. So NR's in this spot where it's a top 2 win rate faction. It's probably bottom 2 play rate faction, but it's super strong. And one of the reasons is that, like, you lose to them in a long run, but you also lose to them in a short round because they have a bunch of carryover, and a lot of time, Radovid Judgment is a big part of that carryover. It comes out on the same turn as another threat, so it's usually difficult to answer it. It gives you proactive removal reach. It's just a lot of points, and it can also be a body to, like, put Dandelion buffs on, for example. Have you considered nerfing Eventide Plunder? It's been, like, very rarely talked about. It's maybe something to consider in the future. It's tough because Syndicate is such a tough faction to figure out for Balance Council because the win rate and play rate are so polar opposite. It's even worse than NR, right? It's the #1 win rate faction in the game, but it's the #1 lowest play rate faction in the game, and not by not by a little bit. It's #1 lowest play rate faction by a lot. So it's very difficult, but I think it's interesting an interesting idea to consider nerfing Eventide Plunder to 5 provisions and, like, compensating elsewhere potentially. Yeah. So what I was talking about, Radovid Judgment, right? So we're nerfing Radiant Secret Service because it's like one of NR's best cards, super strong, very difficult to deal with engines when they have shield protecting them from damage and then Radiant Secret Service protecting them from locks and poisons. Many decks cannot deal with that, and you basically have to heat wave something if you want to answer it. And there's 2 of them, and they thin, and they give, like, really good points. These cards are better points than Roach. They have a better stat line than Roach, even if they get 0 purify value. And then if they get purify value on something that's like a 2 point per turn engine, then it's probably like 15 points better than Roach. And it self-thins, and it doesn't require you to play a card that turn. You play a threat. Normally, they play a lock, you play a purify, like a Peller, to unlock. You kind of trade evenly in tempo, and now it's their turn again. And you have 1 threat on the board, and they can answer your threat again. But if you play a threat, they play a lock, and Redanian Secret Service jumps out on the board on their turn, they usually can't, after playing a card, they usually can't answer the Redanian Secret Service anymore. And then it's your turn. You click the Redanian Secret Service to purify that lock, and then you play another threat on the same turn. And now you have 2 threats on the board. And the first threat is still unanswered. You have both threats. They can only probably answer 1 threat, even if they have more answers. And maybe they don't even have more answers. And so many times, the round and thus the game just feel over because of Redanian Secret Service. Like, you can't answer a Dandelion because of Redanian Secret Service. They get a ton of carryover. It doesn't matter if they're blue coin, you're still losing. So I think this card is, like, super strong right now, and I think at 7 provisions, people will still play it. Maybe only as a 1 of, but maybe even still as a 2 of. This card is so good for decks like Shield Wall Meave or Shield Wall Golden Necker. These especially Shield Wall. Anything Shield Wall Keira. I think it might like I feel like the fact that Keira is probably going to get a buff this season. I think we really need to nerf Secret Service. Otherwise, this deck is going to be pretty unhealthy. Isn't NR win rates high because of Demaven Zeal? I think that's a big part of it, and Demaven Zeal does play our Redanian Secret Service. It doesn't always play Redanian Secret Service, but some of them do. I probably, at least in my MMR, I run into it more often with Redanian Secret Service than without. Usually they only play one of because they don't have Shield Wall to give the status. But I think like Redanian Secret Service is in so many NR decks. It's sometimes in... Alright, I mean, Kerpiton, sure. That's arguable on whether it makes the deck better or not, but it's in so many NR decks. It's in some of the IZ decks. It's in pretty much every Shield Wall deck, whether it's Keira, whether it's Shield Wall Alumni, whether it's Shield Wall Meave, whether it's Shield Wall Golden Necker. They all play at least one Redanian Secret Service, if not two. It's in your Pincer Maneuver Cursed Ada deck, right? As a one of. It's in Melitele decks as a one of. It's in Priestesses as well for thinning. I agree they don't have to play her, but she's a benefit to the deck, to those decks. They have a lot of high threat, high value engines, and she's just a great way to protect them. And she's super cheap. The stat line is crazy, right? I feel like with an upside like this, it should not have a stat line better than Roach. And you can play two of them. Roach is a 3 for 9 self thinner. This is a 1 for 6 self thinner. That is 1 point better than Roach because it's 2 power less but 3 provisions cheaper. And she purifies. Like the purify can be worth a crazy amount of points. Even if it doesn't get anything, she's still better than Roach. Shouldn't be. When the ceiling of this card is so high, at least when she doesn't get purify value, it shouldn't be better than Roach or Best Boy. It should be slightly worse than them, right? To balance the fact that the ceiling, when the purify gets value, is so much better. Provision to power like that doesn't work like that? You mean it's not linear? Is that what your point is? RS is 2 provisions, Roach is 5 provisions. Yeah, okay, we can look at it that way. We can look at it in terms of excess provisions, but that doesn't change the math. That doesn't change the math that Roach is 3 more provisions than RSS, but only 2 more points. And in Shield Wall, they both come out just as easily when we're talking about Shield Wall. Maybe a little bit different if we're talking about something else, like Pincer Maneuver or Zeal. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like different factors to consider, but I feel like there's no argument that Redanian Secret Service is way better than Roach or Best Boy. Okay, let's talk about Vanadain. Vanadain's kind of a controversial one, but we think that nerfing the power of Vanadain is a good way to deal with the heist interaction. Some people want to nerf heist instead. I can see arguments for both, but nerfing Vanadain makes it much easier to answer the Vanadain so that they cannot bounce it. And it's not just heist that bounces Vanadain, right? There's also Talianin that bounces Vanadain. We played against a guy that plays Decoy to bounce Vanadain and Angus the other day. I think I played against it off stream. But there are multiple ways to get value from Vanadain again. Lear and I were discussing this. I think we might think about trying to also nerf the power of Angus and then give it a provision decrease to compensate, and then maybe leave heist the same and leave heist untouched. Heist has other interactions with like heist. I feel like heist isn't as big of a problem in traps because it doesn't have like this Vernacial to bounce, this Eisenrim to bounce in traps. It also has Reordain and Hostage Taker, which are really great bounce targets, but those are also 4 power and easier to kill. So we're nerfing Vanadain to try to alleviate some of this huge carryover built from not just Vanadain himself, but also the heist and the Talina and the decoy on replaying Vanadain. Like it making people having easier time to kill it, because you can't lock Vanadain to stop that to stop that replay aspect, because the bounce will reset the lock. But if you lower his power, he becomes easier to kill. IZ Cursed might even get their win rates up after RSS nerf. Why do you say that? Is the Red Dane unfolding serious? Wait, what? They put a maximum of one of them in the deck? Are you talking about this card? There's many decks that play this card with two copies. This is a really, really strong card. Really, really strong. I believe it'll still see play at 7 provisions. Oh, I see, Kerperton. You're saying that nerfing RSS would encourage people to play, in your opinion, the stronger version of Inspired Zeal. I see. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit, Kerperton, on why you think that Inspired Zeal Temple Devotion deck is stronger without Redanian Secret Service? I'm not saying you're wrong. I think there's definitely a possibility that you're right. I've played more of the non-RSS version of IZ than the one with, but I'm curious what your reasoning is. Brick needs bad siege tower. Okay. I see. I do agree that siege tower is on the worst side, but it's not terrible, right? Like, what card would you play instead of the siege tower? You're already playing 2 Marines, whether you play siege tower or not, right? Bricks and IZ need turbo payoffs. Okay. I agree with that, because I do agree that we draw a lot as Inspired Zeal, especially with Refards and Siege Masters. You do have Temple and Cursed Scroll to put Redanian Secret Service back in the deck. But on your point, bricks need turbo payoffs. I think Redanian Secret Service is a turbo payoff. I really feel like this upside is so high. Like your Demavend or your Refards or some other like 2-point per turn engine or better gets purified because of Redanian Secret Service. That's a turbo payoff. Shenmue is drawing RSS with Temple and buffing it to 11 power. In practice, it is not. Because you feel like there's not enough locks in the meta? Why? What's the reasoning? Because you're gonna brick. I mean, you beat NG Renfree anyways. Okay. Is it that favored? I feel like maybe that's true for you. I feel like a lot of people would say NR Engine Overload would love to have a Purify against NG Renfree. I don't know why NG, or I don't know why you would say IZ, like Inspired Zeal Demavend, is that favored against a deck that plays that many locks. It's not Engine Overload, though. It's Demavend. It is Engine Overload. It's Demavend, Refards, Reinforced Ballista, Carol Ballista, Revenant again, maybe another engine or two from Temple. Like that's easily 9-10 engines that are all pretty big threats. There's Siege. It's like, how could you not call that deck an engine overload deck? Yes, they have deploy. Demavend has deploy. Refarth has deploy. But they have huge upsides of engine upsides too when unanswered. Come on, man. That's such a like disingenuous thing to call that deck not engine overload. They can both, like, a deck that plays low floor engines and the deck that plays high floor engines are both engine overload decks. That doesn't, right? It doesn't, just because the floors are higher doesn't make the engine overload part wrong. Engine overload part only pertains to whether there's a lot of upside from not getting answered. Doesn't matter how high the floor is or how low the floor is. I gotta say you're wrong on that. Okay, let's talk about Sesame. Sesame Syndicate, like I said, is a really hard faction to deal with when it comes to properly balancing with the Balance Council. We gave like 4 different options, I think, when it came to nerfing Syndicate. Syndicate is one of the top 2 win rate factions right now. Both Vice and Gangs are considered pretty strong, but very low play rate, especially when you're talking about like lower MMRs. We wanted to nerf one thing from Syndicate. None of the other coalitions were nerfing Syndicate. And in our poll, we gave options for Sesame, for pulling the strings, for Acherontia power decrease, and for flying Redanian provision increase. We didn't put Shady Vendor in. We didn't put Novigrad in. I kind of regret not putting those in. The Eventide Plunder thing is interesting as well. Maybe we'll put that in the poll and see how it does next season. Open Sesame got the highest support. Everything got low support. All right, everything got low support. Open Sesame was the least lowest at like 20 something, 23, 24%. So that's why we ended up going with Open Sesame, because we do feel that Syndicate needs one nerf, but we're going to end up going with the one that has the least lowest support, the best support, because we wanted to get through. We don't want to pick something. Personally, if it were just me, I would maybe pick something else. But I'd rather go with Sesame and have it go through than go with something else, my personal favorite, and it not go through. You're literally phrasing it like this is an engine overload deck. It should be against bad... Huh? NG overload decks? Engine overload decks usually have no points when engines are answered, so countering Demavend is not full control. It plays way different than engine overload decks. I see. Okay, I think this is just a miscommunication between you and I on what is an engine overload deck. You seem to have the connotation or assumption that engine overload decks mean low floor. But I don't. I think that's really the difference. I don't think an engine overload deck, if you call it a deck, an engine overload deck, I don't think those engines necessarily need to have low floors. Or like you need to be playing like, 4 for 6, 4 for 7s, and 5 for 8s and stuff like that. Hey, Caffey Paws. All right. So in the long term, I mean, we really don't know what is going to happen with Syndicate. We don't know if this is going to go through. We don't know if, it's hard to look ahead in the future for Syndicate. But I did have a talk with Lirio, and we were thinking like, one possibility is Open Sesame and Pulling the Strings both get nerfed to 6p, and then we compensate Syndicate elsewhere. So that, and both at 6p means that Shady Vendor can't create them. I am a believer, I think Lyra and I are both believers, that 6 Provision Sesame and 6 Provision Pulling the Strings. So a lot of people say that 6 Provision Sesame and 6 Provision Pulling the Strings kills those decks. Kills Vice, kills Gangs. I don't think that's true. I think I think it looked like that in the past a little bit because Syndicate got so many nerfs at the same time. When Sesame and Pulling the Strings were previously nerfed to 6p, they also came with like multiple other Syndicate nerfs at the same time. And so they got, the decks definitely did get over nerfed, but I think if done properly, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong or inherently kills those decks with these crimes not being able to be created by Shady Vendor. I think they can be properly balanced that way, but it's going to be difficult to get everybody on board. Threat overload? Okay, let's just call it threat overload then. I think there's, yeah, I think there is a difference between threats and engines, but I mean, yeah, I think there's a difference between threat and engines. I think engine overload, I just call it engine overload because that's more common term. But it's, you're right. Maybe technically we should call it a threat overload deck. What does Vice replace Sesame with? They don't replace Sesame. They just play Sesame at 6 provisions, and they play 2 of them instead of 2 to 4 of them. But I do think it's going to be a pretty big nerf to the deck. I think most likely people will turn to gangs or something else instead if this nerf goes through. The other option was to leave Sesame and Pulling the Strings both at 5p and nerf Shady Vendor to 6p. But we didn't have Shady Vendor in the poll, which is our bad. So because we don't have Shady Vendor in the poll, we don't really know how much support it has, and we're going to go with the card that we put in the poll instead. All right, Skjordal. I saw someone say, like, why were we nerfing Skjordal? I haven't even seen Skjordal. It's not intended to be a nerf. It is going to be a nerf this month, but it's intended to be part of a 2-step buff. The nerf Skjordal to 9 provisions and then buff him to 4 power. And the power buff will be a 2-point buff, more than a 2-point buff, because he's going to do 1 extra damage, and then he's going to be able to kill things that he wasn't able to kill before. And it's, the intention is alongside like a Highland Warlord nerf and maybe some other adjustments to Warriors cards, I would like to see Skjordal be an option again for Devotion SK. Not necessarily even Warriors per se, but just Devotion, give diversity to building Devotion SK decks. At its current stat level, pretty much nobody plays it. Honestly, Vendor fixes so many. KOB being auto-include, annoying RNG, and broken 5p provision crime spam. Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to talk to you about this, like, you know, a week or 2 weeks ago. But I tried to message you guys in the Discord, but we figured it, like, I mean, you told me afterwards, you know, more recently after we published, that it's better to just DM you. I thought, I think I tagged you guys, you and Doran, wanting to talk about things, but didn't get a chance to. It's fine. Yeah, nobody really plays Vendor for pure value anymore. Interesting, the last 2 warriors you found both played Skjordal. Okay. I think, like, yeah, I think making Skjordal a little bit stronger isn't a bad thing, especially if Highland Warlords and other cards, like, Danny is nerfing warriors potentially really heavily this season. Highland Warlord nerf, which is going to come through by casuals anyways, and then he's nerfing maybe Primal Savagery, maybe Onkrite Raiders. Don't know if they're going to go through, but we'll see. Madman Lugos is getting buffed, Profiteer. If you check my exclamation deck spreadsheet and you go to the BC December tab, you can see the vote map, the current vote map, and which coalitions are voting for what. Metallic Danny has Madman Lugos power increase at 2 stars. It's probably going to go through. It's very popular on our poll. It's very popular within his Russian community as well. It's probably going to get through a power increase on Madman Lugos. So nerfs you choose must be from the poll? No, not necessarily. But when it came to Syndicate this month, we weren't confident enough to go with Shady Vendor without polling it. Just in that situation. I wouldn't say as a blanket general statement that nerfs always have to be from our poll. And then, like, supporting stuff like Elderbear, we supported you. Vanadain, I don't remember if it was in this poll or if it was in last poll, but we do take cards from previous polls as well, especially if they performed really well, and we don't really have much reason to think that they changed very much in this season. You're sad that this will kill Vice. Um, we can. I think like even if it does in the short term, I think it can be adjusted in the future. Uh, Treant Mantis Stalk. Treant Mantis Stalk is a pretty cool card. It's really weak, but I think it gives traps an additional dimension. It becomes, I think traps are most interesting when there's a lot of things that you could potentially, the trap could be, and there's different lines to play around each type of trap. Um, it's really never, it's so weak that I don't think people really ever really like truly experimented seriously with this card. Uh, I think this card could see some experimentation at 5 provisions. Maybe it'll need another buff to 4 provisions at some point. It's something that you could package with Forest Protectors, which is also maybe getting a buff this season from Kirpiton and Darin. They're trying to buff Forest Protector to 4 power. And you could put this in a package with a trap deck. And it could be used as a like second to last finisher. If you expect your opponent to play a very tall unit, second to last, you could play this second to last and then play a poison on the last turn. And this could also be interesting because let's say you play a face down trap, right? And they think you might have played a sticky situation, right? Because maybe they think you're playing sticky situation to win round 1. And what do when they try to play around sticky situation? They don't play small cards. If they play small cards 4 power or lower, they're going to trigger for the sticky situation, and you're going to start getting 4 points a turn. So they're going to play a big card. And it's like especially cool if you've already used Serpent Trap. Like you could do something like you could purposely use Serpent Trap early, and then they know there's no Serpent Trap, and then they don't have to play around the Serpent Trap anymore, and they might play a taller unit earlier because they think there's no Serpent Trap, and then boom, Mantis Strike. 6 head play, right? Like that's really cool. This sort of stuff is really fun. But it's always been too weak for anybody to even try it. And so it's this card is probably our designated low impact buff this season. I think all of our other buffs are fairly high impact. This one is definitely the lowest, but I think it's okay for to have like 1 or 2 buffs for low impact stuff that might need another change to see play. But maybe it'll see play with the Force Protector. Even at 5p, it has uses. Definitely not useless. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's also not useless. Mantis helps play around Spring as well. That's true. So Mantis is a trap that you can play that then will flip into a unit, and then you can play another trap next to it, or 2 traps next to it. Actually, I guess just 1 trap next to it, right? 1 additional trap that you couldn't play before. So this kind of goes along with buffing Mahakam Horn previously as well, and now to give traps more options, more things that it could potentially be. Land of 1,000 Fables. This is card since Balance Council 1 has been top of the polls. We've pulled it multiple times. It always has a lot of support. To be a provision decrease to 9 provisions, it'll become Golden Necker valid, and you could use this to tutor Golden Necker. You could use it to transform something that's bad, like maybe you're playing Abduction Golden Necker, and Abduction's a dead card. You transform Abduction into a random unit. It has some synergies with like Sihil, which is really weak right now. And honestly, I don't think Sihil is even a toxic deck anymore now that it's capped at 3 damage. This card would rock in NG Golden Necker. Yeah. Yeah, Ku will likely be 10, but maybe it won't go through. 9 pre-transforms for NG is surprisingly good. Yeah. I do think that NG Golden Necker would be very cool with this card. And Ku. Yeah, Ku too. Ku and Abduction are both good examples of special cards that may be dead that you could transform into something better. And this is a consistency card. Nobody really even plays it for consistency because it's so expensive. And it will now be the same cost as Royal Decree. And it'll be probably worse than Royal Decree because it's so much more specific. the tutoring specials only. The order is also pretty random, so can't rely on it too much. It's more like a get out of a bad situation, get out of a low roll, bad draw, you drew a brick kind of situation. But yeah, it's a very popular change that finally, hopefully, will go through. Nobody really has prioritized this in over a year, even though a lot of people have asked for it. Last but not least, Keira. Herberton and Lirio both love the idea of buffing Keira. I don't love it as much. I feel like this archetype can be very, very scary, very kind of binary, especially if Vanadain Secret Service doesn't get nerfed and like Banar Tutor also gets buffed. Like I think a deck with students and Keira can be really scary because here I'll show you an example of kind of what deck I'm talking about. But we're looking to try it. We're looking to try it. It's very popular. One of the most popular. I think the winner of our poll. It's definitely high impact. It would encourage people to try a new archetype that's not really been tried that much. I mean, both Lirio and Herberton have tried it in past couple months, but in terms of like the public, it hasn't been tried that much. She did give you, yeah, she was a point slam card before feed hit. Explaining Keira for your video is a torture. I don't remember what you said, but here's my current deck with Keira. I've only played a couple games with it this season. It's similar to something that I think was on Kerpenton's channel. I think I probably got inspired by Kerpenton's list and made a couple of small changes to it. The idea for me is many people told she was useless. Many people told she's broken. Yeah. I mean, I kind of can see why. She's kind of weak and broken at the same time. She has super low of a floor and super high of a ceiling. The people who feel like she gets answered all the time says she's useless. And people who think that she doesn't get answered and focus on the ceilings think she's broken. Anyways. Even when unanswered, Patience 0 hurts so much. Patience 0 does hurt a lot. I do wish that they changed her to Patience 1. This would be one of the cards that I would change. Patience 1, higher provisions. Or maybe same provisions. Would be cool. She's an Elderbear. Yes, she's an Elderbear type of engine where she like sucks when she gets answered. She's super low floor for her provisions. But her engine value grows by so much each turn. She's probably getting like 6 points, at least 6 points, if not more, a turn. Because she has so many synergies. Obviously, like, she plays a 6 here, you know, probably at least a 6 here, if not more. Probably at least a 6 here, if not more. A 5 here with removal. A PMP can be easily 6 points, if not more. And then all of those trigger Spellweavers. So all your Spellweavers get like +5. And all your, if you play Alzer, then he spawns stuff too. Yeah, Fulmar, Tier, those similar cards all have good deploy values. I agree with you. I agree with you, Kerpenton. Like, she should be Patience 1. That would be such a better fix for her than buffing her by power or provisions. Patience 1, and she's much healthier design. This one worked best, but got to like 2570, then dropped it because of snipers. Yeah, Scorch. I saw the version with Scorch. I'm really surprised that Scorch worked that well for you. That you would be willing to include it. It is a spell, I suppose. So you feel like you were sticking Spellweavers fairly often, I guess, in order for Scorch to work? But I was saying, like, the thing that I'm scared about with this deck is students. You play students in round 1. If your opponent doesn't answer them, you just create alumni in round 3 with your rune words, with your chapter of wizards, with your Keira. Rune Mage gives you 5 options, so your rune words have a really high chance of getting alumni. And so you get like really good carryover payoff from your students if they don't get answered. if your opponent doesn't want you to get high value alumni, right? And alumni, like assuming they're zealed, they don't get controlled. So even if your opponent saves control for round 3, if they don't answer your students, you can get a lot of on deploy value from just your rune words. If they do spend a bunch of removals to answer your students, they're probably going to be out of removals for your spellweavers, for your revenants, for your Keira, for your Yennefer illusionist, for another spellweaver, right? And so it's kind of like a catch-22. You're not, if they do answer your students, you're not forced to play really crappy alumni that don't have zeal, that have low payoff, that cost 6 provisions. But if they don't answer your students, you have the option to play alumni. Playing around Scorch, the opponent loses so many points. Oh, really? Interesting. If only CDPR support a bit longer to fix many of those balance issues. Maybe we should write some of this stuff down, right? The highest priority text fixes. Maybe with Witcher 4 one day, CDPR will come back to the game. Or maybe they'll be willing to like do some changes to text one time as like a you know, thank you to all the people involved in Gwentfinity and Balance Console. I wonder how much. I wonder if that would even be possible. Maybe that's just hopium. Like, what if over the next, you know, several months we compiled a list of 20, 40 things for them to change to text, and then they just like did it all. Can you show top end? Yeah. We wish, Copium. Well, yeah, Shinmir was taken, if you hit. It's the cope that kills you. Yeah, this one? What do you mean? Yeah, this one. What do you think? So I like the 2 secret services. I feel like they're so good for all your engines. And since you're shield wall, you can get them out anyways. Looks really bad in short round. Yeah, I thought this archetype is just not a short round archetype. It doesn't want to go to short round. Does your version feel better in a short round? Like, what's your win con in a short round that I don't have? Triss telekinesis? Oh, Banart Tutor, by the way. This card, I didn't play it in my deck, but I got a couple of these. I got 3 of these from Runewords the other day playing this deck. They got to like 16, 20 power each, depending on like, you know, which order. Like one was 16, one was 18, one was 20. Obviously, because Keira stuck, but this card has really nice ceiling with this deck. You also have artifact compression. Gotcha. Scorch is also a ton punish. Your opponent can bleed you and then play a big finisher. Doesn't need last say. Oh, I see. So Scorch can like, if you keep card advantage and you keep last say, then your Scorch can kind of be a win con against those tall finishers. That makes sense. I mean, would it make more sense to just save 2 provisions and play Curse of Corruption? What if you like debate everyone into thinking that you have Scorch by publishing the Scorch list and playing it on stream, and then just play Curse of Corruption? Nah, you don't play off stream. Okay. Anyways. Yeah, I think like this buffing this card will definitely be pretty high impact. It'll be interesting for the deck. I'm just scared of a meta where this deck gets a lot more play. I'm quite scared of the meta. I feel like it'll be possibly even like I think a lot of people would agree when I say alumni meta was not good. Alumni meta felt very strangling in terms of like what decks you could play for fun in the meta and still have a, you know, pretty decent win rate, because you basically couldn't play anything that doesn't have control in round 1. And it felt like so many more matchups were decided in the deck builder or in round 1 draws when alumni is a big part of the meta. And I think this deck is maybe even going to be worse than alumni. Maybe? Hard to say. When it comes to like worse than alumni when it comes to like games being decided in the deck builder or round 1 draws. Maybe not as much. Because students don't give as much carryover in this deck compared to the actual alumni deck. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, that's the summary of our balance console. It's very complex thing to come up with a good balance console that people are also happy with, that can make it through and try to balance and try to like juggle and predict what all the other changes are going to be, because we only can affect 12 changes, but there's going to be 40 changes that go through. Quick peek at our spreadsheet. Let me do this quick. Here's a quick peek at the vote map. Well, these are our changes. This is kind of my predictions right now. I've added to the vote map since we made the Reddit thread these 2 columns. Daoshi, content creator from China, and Catburger, competitive player from China, or former competitive player from China, have both released their recommendations now. And John Sally as well. I think these all came after we published our list, the 3 Chinese lists. Alumni's not bad, but Letitia feels so bad. Yeah, but Letitia feels super bad. Anyways, yeah, so these 3 are maybe what the Chinese people are going to be following or potentially rallying around. I'm not really sure what their influence is going to be. This is the first time I've heard Catburger and John Sally release a list. Daoshi got nothing through last season, so I don't put too much weight on Daoshi's recommendations, but John Sally and Catburger are unknown. Active CIS players is also unknown. Is it CIS or CIS? When it refers to like the Russian speaking region. CIS? Okay. Active CIS players. This Reddit thread, it got quite a lot of support. A lot of people were happy about like them showing love to Nilfgaard, but I also am scared if like everything goes through. Like Anna Henrietta goes through, Brothens goes through. Anna Henrietta and Brothens are most likely to go through in terms of NG buffs, because they are getting, there's multiple coalitions supporting them. And usually in the past, when we've seen multiple coalitions support something, it usually always, or usually, is it usually, or maybe at least almost always, maybe even always goes through something that multiple coalitions. But this was in the age of the Big Four. I think in the age of the Big Four, multiple coalitions supporting the same card always went through. But I'm not sure if the same thing's going to hold true for this. We also have imprisonment. I really disagree with the imprisonment buff, but maybe it won't be a big deal. It's going to 15. Enslave might get buffed. That's at 3 stars. Terra Nova might get buffed. That's at 3 stars. Illusionist is probably going to get buffed. That's coming from Kirpert and Doran at 3 stars. And then maybe Turncoat. Maybe Doedric. Probably Nausicaa Brigade, most likely. It's 3 stars from Danny. But we'll probably see a coup nerf. Oh, this is the wrong color. These. We'll probably see a coup nerf. We'll probably see a Rumpali nerf. We'll probably see like the Sergeant Slave Driver Calvi. Sergeant Slave Driver nerf. Sergeant nerf is like guaranteed pretty much. Slave Driver nerf is a little less guaranteed, but I think still really likely. Highland Warlord nerf guaranteed. Renfrey nerf guaranteed. Just don't know which category it's going to be in. And Calvite buff is probably guaranteed. There's a Calvite. The casuals will probably vote to buff Calvite with provisions, because that's the revert. But Catburger, interestingly enough, is saying to buff Calvite with power. And I think that's got to be a compromise from him, trying to find the right spot for a Calvite where people won't ping pong it every season. And I think maybe he might be right. Maybe 8 power, 12 provisions is maybe the sweet spot. It'll be a smaller buff than reverting it by provisions. I feel like right now at 7 power, 12 provisions, Calvite, nobody's playing it. It's almost unseen. Enslaved 6 assembly decks are either playing Ibo or they're just playing like previous Calvite version of Enslaved 6 just without Calvite and playing like Furco. And maybe they don't even play Ivo, but they're just playing Furco, Magni Divisions, other ways to play Magni Divisions like Arturius, Ramon, Slave Driver. Yeah, so the active CIS players, this list is not a democratic list. The previous Chinese recommendations were like almost a fully democratic list. This list is like 20-30 players, Russian-speaking players, and they like had discussions and they came up with a list, like a compromise or some sort of compromise / consensus between their group, which is pretty impressive. Like I gotta say, it's really difficult for 20-30 people to come to an agreement. I think it's like Lear and I get along super well, and I really enjoy working with him on the Balance Council this past year or half a year. But even for just us 2 people, it is challenging sometimes to come to an agreement on 12 cards. Enslave buff is really dumb. I don't like the Enslave buff either. I was really disappointed with their list in terms of like how many different ways they're trying to buff Nilfgaard. Their approach and their reasoning is they don't expect all 4 of their Nilfgaard buffs to go through. They think not everything will go through, so they're just like throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. But I think if everything does go through, or if even like 3 of them go through, I think it's going to be an overbuff. And overbuffing has definitely negative lasting consequences, as we've seen before with Warriors and with Warriors making Highland Warlord a ping pong card, and with Harmony and Warriors just getting instantly reverted completely. Rawdins is the only thing I like. I like Honor Henrietta. I like Honor Henrietta. Like we obviously like Honor Henrietta enough to support them on this. Yeah. So it's going to be really hard to predict with so many different groups and influencers at play here. But I'm of course excited to see what happens and what goes through, what doesn't. Either way, I think we'll have a pretty big shakeup. We're going to see like, the whole Renfrey NG thing get nerfed again, and we're going to see new stuff to try out with Vanilla Ciri, with probably Keira, with probably Land of 1,000 Fables. Megascope will be back. Megascope, like, it does support a lot of off-meta type of stuff. So there was definitely a trade-off for nerfing it because of Fruit's deck. But not necessarily all the things that it does support is something healthy for the meta. We'll see. We'll see. If Megascope does get buffed again, I'll probably try out Chromandos again. Because Chromandos, that will finally make Chromandos buffed from their previous best state. Because now Chromandos will have the 2 extra provisions from the fishies and also not have the Megascope nerf. Yeah, Kraken buff might go through if people actually really figure out that this SK Rain deck is really good. Maxi, I would actually like to see Maxi go through. I would have considered supporting this card too. Will you buff Prism Pendant in the future? It's possible. It's definitely like on a long list of potential cards to potentially buff. Anyways, I gotta go. GG's, I'm wrapping up. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys want to see again what we're voting for, I'll bring it back up on screen. There's the link. in the chat, !balance, if you want to come back and check it. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and I hope you guys enjoyed the balance console section. And if you like it, please support it. Please vote for what you like. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.